I've always believed that trust is the foundation of any marriage, the invisible thread that holds two people together through the storms of life. For 15 years, I thought Claire and I had woven that thread into something unbreakable. We met in college, two idealistic kids in a philosophy class debating the meaning of life over cheap coffee. She had this laugh, bright and unself-conscious, that could make even the gloomiest lecture hall feel alive. I was smitten from the first time she challenged my half-baked argument about existentialism, her green eyes flashing with mischief. We built a life together in Seattle, a cozy craftsman house, a daughter named Lily who inherited her mother's laugh, and a rhythm to our days that felt as natural as breathing. I'm a structural engineer, designing bridges that connect cities, while Claire runs a small bakery downtown, her hands always dusted with flour, her smile greeting customers like old friends. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I thought we were happy. That belief started to fray 6 months ago, though I didn't see it at first. The signs were subtle, like cracks in a bridge's foundation, easy to miss if you're not looking closely. Claire started staying late at the bakery, claiming she was experimenting with new recipes or catching up on paperwork. I didn't question it. Her passion for her work was one of the things I loved most about her. But then there were the phone calls she'd take in the other room, her voice low and hurried, ending the moment I walked in. She'd smile, say it was a supplier or a friend, and I'd nod, ignoring the unease curling in my gut. I told myself it was nothing. Marriages have ebbs and flows, right? We were busy, raising a 10-year-old, juggling careers. It was normal for things to feel off sometimes. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday, unremarkable except for the rain that had been pounding Seattle all day, turning the streets into rivers. Lily was at a sleepover, and I'd planned to surprise Claire with dinner at home, her favorite, homemade lasagna, a bottle of Pinot Noir, maybe a chance to reconnect. Work had been brutal for me, a bridge project in Tacoma eating up my evenings, and I felt like we hadn't really talked in weeks. I left the office early, stopped by the market for fresh basil, and got home around 6, expecting to find Claire already there, maybe kneading dough on the counter like she sometimes did when she was stressed. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Her car wasn't there. I figured she was still at the bakery, so I texted her. *K. Got a surprise for you. Home soon. No response. I started cooking anyway, chopping onions, layering pasta, letting the rhythm of it soothe me. An hour passed, then 2. By 8, the lasagna was cooling on the counter, and my texts were still unanswered. I called her, and it went straight to voicemail. A prickle of worry crept up my spine, but I pushed it down. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she was with a friend. I called the bakery next, but the answering machine picked up, Claire's cheerful voice promising to return calls tomorrow. By 9, worry had turned to something sharper. I grabbed my keys and drove to the bakery, the rain hammering my windshield. The shop was locked, the windows dark, the closed sign swaying in the wind. I stood there, getting soaked, my mind racing. Where was she? I called her best friend, Sarah, who sounded confused and said she hadn't spoken to Claire all day. I tried her sister, then her mom. Nothing. Finally, I called the hospital, my heart pounding, but there was no record of her. I drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel, telling myself she'd be there when I got back, laughing at me for worrying. She wasn't. The house was still empty, the lasagna cold. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, willing it to ring. At midnight, headlights swept across the living room. I bolted to the door, relief flooding me, until I saw her step out of a car I didn't recognize. A black SUV, sleek and unfamiliar, idling in our driveway. Claire got out of the passenger side, her hair damp, her coat pulled tight around her. She leaned back into the car, saying something to the driver, and then the SUV pulled away. She didn't see me standing in the doorway until she was halfway up the walk. "David," she said, startled, her voice too high. "What are you doing up? Where were you?" My voice was calm, but it felt like I was holding a live wire. "I've been calling you for hours." Her eyes darted away, just for a second, but it was enough. "I'm sorry," she said, brushing past me into the house. My phone died, and I got caught up at the bakery. We had a big order come in last minute. I followed her inside, watching as she hung up her coat, her movements jerky. The bakery was closed when I went by. Where were you, Claire? She froze, just for a moment, then turned with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I went to Sarah's after. We were catching up. I didn't realize how late it was. Sarah said she hasn't talked to you all day. Her face faltered, and I felt something inside me crack. You called Sarah? She said, her voice sharp now. What, are you checking up on me? I was worried, I said, louder than I meant to. You didn't answer your phone. You weren't at the bakery. What was I supposed to think? She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I'm sorry, okay? I just needed a break. It's been a lot lately. Who was in the car? The question slipped out before I could stop it, and her eyes widened, just a fraction. What? The black SUV. Who dropped you off? She hesitated, and in that moment I knew. I didn't know what exactly, but I knew she was lying. It was just an Uber, she said finally, turning away to pour herself a glass of water. I didn't want to drive in the rain. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but the pieces didn't fit. An Uber driver she'd lean in to talk to? A phone that died but somehow didn't get charged all night? I stood there, watching her sip her water, her back to me, and felt the first real splinter of doubt lodge in my chest. The next few weeks were a slow descent into suspicion. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband snooping through his wife's things, but the doubt was relentless. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way she'd angle her phone away when she texted. The new perfume she started wearing, sharp and unfamiliar. The way she'd come home late, smelling faintly of wine, claiming she'd been at a networking event for local businesses. I tried talking to her, asking if something was wrong, if we were okay. She'd smile, kiss my cheek, and say, "We're fine, David, just busy." But her eyes didn't meet mine the way they used to. One night, after she'd fallen asleep, I did something I swore I'd never do. I took her phone from the nightstand. She'd changed her passcode recently. Another red flag, but I knew her well enough to guess it. Lily's birthday. The screen unlocked, and my heart pounded as I opened her messages. Most were harmless, text to Sarah, her sister, a group chat with the bakery staff. But then I saw it. A thread with someone named M. No last name, no context, just a string of messages that made my stomach drop. Missed you tonight. Can't stop thinking about you. Asterisk, meet me tomorrow? Same place, 7? Asterisk. The replies were hers, unmistakable in their tone. Asterisk, can't wait. I'll be there. Asterisk. I scrolled up, my hands shaking, reading months of messages. They were careful, never explicit, but the intimacy was undeniable. Plans to meet at a hotel downtown. Vague references to last time and feeling alive again. I felt sick, my vision blurring as I set the phone down. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering who she was when she wasn't with me. The next morning, I confronted her. I didn't plan it. The words just spilled out over breakfast. Lily upstairs getting ready for school. Who's M? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Claire froze, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. What? I saw your texts. Who is M? Her face went pale, then red. You went through my phone? She said, her voice rising. That's a violation, David. How could you? Don't turn this on me, I snapped. You're sneaking around, lying about where you've been. Who is he? She set the mug down hard, coffee sloshing onto the table. It's not what you think, she said, but her voice wavered. M is just a friend, someone from the business network. We've been working on a project together. A project that involves meeting at hotels? Don't lie to me, Claire. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought she'd confess, that we'd have it out and maybe, just maybe, find a way through. But then her expression hardened. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said. I'm not doing anything wrong. "You're just paranoid." I wanted to scream, to shake her until the truth came out, but Lily bounded downstairs, oblivious, asking for pancakes. The moment passed, and Claire slipped into mom mode, all smiles and warmth, like nothing was wrong. I watched her, my wife, my partner, and felt like I was looking at a stranger. That day, I started digging. I couldn't stop myself. I checked her email, her calendar, anything I could access. I found receipts for hotel stays, dinners I hadn't been invited to, a new credit card I didn't know about. I hired a private investigator, a quiet man named Paul who spoke in short sentences and didn't ask questions. Within a week, he had a name, Michael Brennan, a real estate developer who frequented Claire's bakery. Paul sent me photos, Claire and Michael at a cafe, laughing. Claire getting into his SUV. Claire slipping into a hotel, his hand on her back. Each image was a knife cutting away the life I thought we had. I didn't confront her again. Not yet. The anger was building, but so was something else. A need to understand, to know why. And beneath it, a colder, sharper desire. To make her feel the weight of what she'd done. I started planning, not sure what I was planning for, but knowing it would be precise, deliberate, like the bridges I built. Claire had betrayed me, betrayed us, and I wasn't going to let it go unanswered. The only question was how far I'd go to make her pay. The days after I confirmed Claire's betrayal were a blur of rage and calculation. I went through the motions: work, dinner with Lily, small talk with neighbors. While inside, I was a live wire, sparking with every new piece of evidence Paul, the private investigator, sent my way. Michael Brennan wasn't just a fling. He was a fixture in Claire's life, woven into her days with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. Paul's reports were clinical, detached. Dates, times, locations. A hotel downtown every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Lunches at a bistro near the bakery. A weekend trip to Portland, disguised as a business conference for Claire's bakery. Each detail was a brick in the wall I was building, not to keep her out but to trap her in the consequences of her choices. I stopped sleeping in our bed. I'd lie on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for the point where it went wrong. Was it when Lily was born, and we were too exhausted to talk? When my bridge projects kept me late at the office, and she started spending more time at the bakery? Or was it always there, a flaw in the foundation I'd been too blind to see? I didn't know, and that not knowing fueled my anger. Claire didn't seem to notice my absence from our bedroom. She'd kiss my cheek in the morning, ask about my day, and carry on like nothing was wrong. Her ability to lie so effortlessly was a revelation. The woman I'd loved for 15 years was a stranger, and I was starting to hate her. But hate wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel what I felt, the gut punch of betrayal, the slow bleed of trust dissolving. I started planning, not just to confront her but to dismantle the life she'd built behind my back. I didn't want a screaming match or a tearful confession. I wanted something that would hit her where it hurt most. Her pride, her reputation, her precious bakery. And Michael Brennan? He'd pay too. I didn't know how yet, but I knew it would be precise, like a perfectly engineered demolition. The first step was understanding Michael. Paul's reports gave me the basics. 42, divorced, no kids, a real estate developer with a flashy office downtown and a reputation for charm. He was the kind of guy who wore tailored suits and tipped generously, the kind who made waitresses blush and clients sign deals over martinis. I found his LinkedIn, his Instagram, his company's website. He posted about charity galas, new property developments, and, most gallingly, photos of Claire's bakery, captioned with things like, "Best croissants in Seattle," and a winking emoji. The audacity of it made my blood boil. He was parading their affair in plain sight, and I'd been too trusting to notice. I started following him. Not physically, that was Paul's job, but online, mapping his life. His company, Brennan Properties, was developing a luxury condo project in Belltown, a multi-million-dollar deal that was his pride and joy. He'd been in the local papers, smiling in hard hats at groundbreaking ceremonies. I also learned he was a regular at Claire's bakery, a loyal customer who'd invested in her business last year, helping her expand to a second location. That explained the new credit card, the one I hadn't known about. It wasn't just an affair. It was financial entanglement, a betrayal that cut deeper because it wasn't just personal. It was our future she was gambling with. I kept my routine normal, or as normal as I could manage. I didn't want Claire to suspect I was unraveling her secrets. I smiled at Lily's school events, helped with her homework, and even made small talk with Claire over dinner, though every word felt like swallowing glass. She was oblivious, or maybe she just didn't care. She'd come home late, her cheeks flushed, her stories about inventory issues or supplier meetings flimsier each time. I nodded, played the part of the clueless husband, but inside, I was cataloging every lie, every glance she avoided, every time she checked her phone and smiled. Paul's next report was a bombshell. He'd followed Michael to a private club downtown, an exclusive spot for Seattle's elite, real estate moguls, tech entrepreneurs, the kind of people who thought they were untouchable. Claire was there, dressed in a sleek black dress I'd never seen, laughing at Michael's side as they sipped cocktails. Paul's photos showed them close, his hand on her knee, her head tilted toward him like she used to do with me. But what hit hardest was the date, our anniversary. She'd told me she was catering a private event, that she'd be home late. Instead, she was with him, celebrating the day we'd promised to love each other forever. That night, I sat in my office, the house quiet, Lily asleep upstairs. I opened a bottle of whiskey and poured a glass, staring at the photos Paul had emailed. Claire looked happy, happier than I'd seen her in years. It wasn't just the betrayal that burned. It was the realization that she'd found something with him that she didn't have with me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just drank, letting the anger settle into something cold and sharp, like a blade being honed. The plan started to take shape. I needed to hit them both where it hurt, but I had to be careful. Divorce was an option, but it felt too clean, too easy. I wanted Claire to lose something she couldn't replace, something that defined her. The bakery was her heart, her dream, the thing she'd poured herself into. And Michael? His condo project was his legacy, his ticket to the big leagues. If I could take those away, make them feel the kind of loss I was living through, maybe I'd find some peace. I started with the bakery. Claire's business was thriving, but it wasn't bulletproof. She'd taken on debt to open the second location, and Michael's investment had covered the shortfall. I dug into the financials, using my access to our joint accounts and some discreet inquiries through a friend at the bank. The new location was bleeding money, higher rent, slower foot traffic, staffing issues. Claire hadn't told me any of this, probably because she didn't want me asking questions about Michael's role. I saw an opening. If I could expose her financial mismanagement, maybe even tie it to her relationship with Michael, I could tank her reputation in the local business community. Seattle's food scene was tight-knit. Word of scandal would spread fast. I hired a forensic accountant, a woman named Rachel who specialized in digging up dirt on small businesses. I told her I suspected fraud in Claire's bakery, that I needed proof for personal reasons. She didn't blink, just got to work. Within a week, she found discrepancies. Unreported income, expenses that didn't add up, payments to a shell company tied to Michael's firm. It wasn't enough to prove an affair, but it suggested Claire was funneling money to him, maybe to keep him close, maybe to hide their connection. Rachel warned me it was thin, legally speaking, but it was enough to plant seeds of doubt with her investors and suppliers. Next, I turned to Michael's condo project. This was trickier. Real estate development is a house of cards. Permits, investors, public perception all have to align. I started researching his company, looking for weak spots. Paul helped, digging into public records and talking to contacts in the industry. We found that Brennan Properties was overleveraged, borrowing heavily to finance the Belltown project. A few key investors were already nervous about delays in permitting. If I could amplify those concerns, maybe even leak something to the press, I could make Michael's project implode. I also started gathering evidence of their affair, not just for my own satisfaction but as leverage. Paul installed a tracking app on Claire's phone. Unethical, sure, but I was past caring about ethics. The app logged her locations, her calls, her texts. I knew every time she met Michael, every hotel they checked into, every lie she told me. I saved it all, building a dossier that would humiliate her if it ever came out. But I didn't want to just expose her. I wanted her to feel trapped, to know I'd outsmarted her, that her perfect little secret life was crumbling. The hardest part was keeping it from Lily. She was 10, perceptive in that way kids are, and I could tell she sensed something was off. "Why don't you and Mom laugh anymore?" she asked one night. Her fork paused over her spaghetti. I forced a smile, said we were just tired, but her eyes lingered on me, unconvinced. I hated that Claire's betrayal was touching her, even indirectly. It made me want to protect her, to shield her from the fallout, but I knew that whatever I did next would ripple through her life too. That was the one thing holding me back from going nuclear. Lily didn't deserve to lose her mom, not like that. Still, the plan grew. I contacted a journalist, a guy named Tom who wrote for a local business paper. I fed him anonymous tips about Brennan Properties' shaky finances, hinting at conflicts of interest involving a local bakery owner. I didn't name Claire, not yet, but I planted the seed. I also reached out to a lawyer, not for divorce but to explore legal ways to freeze Claire's business accounts if it came to that. I wanted options, an arsenal of moves I could make when the time was right. By now, Claire was starting to notice my distance. She'd ask if I was okay, her voice tinged with something that might have been guilt or just annoyance. I'd shrug, say work was stressful, and change the subject. But I could see her watching me, her brow furrowed, like she was trying to figure out how much I knew. I let her wonder. It was a small victory, watching her squirm, knowing I was pulling strings she couldn't see. The final piece fell into place one night when Paul called with a new lead. Michael was hosting a gala for his investors, a big event to drum up more funding for the condo project. Claire was on the guest list not as a caterer but as his +1. It was in 3 weeks at a swanky venue downtown. Paul sent me the invite, stolen from Michael's email. It was perfect, a public stage, their world and mine colliding. I didn't know exactly what I'd do, but I knew it would be the moment to strike, to expose them both in a way they couldn't escape. As I sat in my office, the whiskey bottle empty now, I felt a strange calm. The anger was still there, but it was focused, a tool I could wield. Claire and Michael thought they were untouchable, sneaking around behind my back, living their secret life. But I was building something too, a plan, a reckoning. They'd underestimated me, and soon they'd learn what happens when you betray someone who knows how to build bridges, and how to burn them down. The night of Michael Brennan's gala arrived like a storm I'd been tracking for weeks, its edges sharp and inevitable. I'd spent the last 3 weeks refining my plan, every detail engineered with the precision I brought to my bridges. This wasn't about confrontation in the heat of anger. It was about dismantling Claire and Michael's carefully constructed worlds, piece by piece, in a way that would leave them exposed and powerless. I wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal, to know that I wasn't the oblivious husband they'd taken me for. The gala was the perfect stage. A room full of Seattle's elite, investors, journalists, and socialites, all gathered to celebrate Michael's ambition. It would be the night they both fell. I told Claire I was working late, a lie she accepted without question, her own secrets making her blind to mine. Lily was at her grandparents' for the weekend, a precaution to keep her out of the fallout. I'd rented a tuxedo, something understated but sharp, and used a contact from work to get myself on the guest list under a pseudonym, David Carter, a structural engineering consultant with vague ties to Brennan Properties. It wasn't hard. Michael's team was so focused on schmoozing investors they didn't vet the list closely. Paul, my private investigator, had hacked into the event's RSVP system to ensure my name was there, no questions asked. The venue was a glittering ballroom in a downtown hotel, all chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Puget Sound. I arrived early, slipping in with the crowd, a glass of champagne in hand to blend in. The room buzzed with self-important chatter. Real estate moguls in tailored suits, women in glittering dresses, the air thick with ambition and perfume. I scanned the crowd, my heart steady despite the adrenaline. Claire was already there, near the center of the room, in a deep blue dress that hugged her figure, her arm linked with Michael's. He was every bit the charismatic developer, shaking hands, laughing too loudly, his hand resting on Claire's lower back like he owned her. She was radiant, her smile practiced, playing the part of the charming plus one. Seeing them together, so comfortable in their deception, made my stomach churn, but I swallowed it down. Emotion had no place tonight. My plan had 3 phases, each designed to hit where it hurt most. Phase 1 was already in motion. Over the past 2 weeks, I'd worked with Rachel, the forensic accountant, to compile a report on Claire's bakery finances. The discrepancies she'd found, unreported income, payments to Michael's shell company, were enough to raise red flags. I'd anonymously sent the report to Claire's primary investor, a woman named Ellen who owned half a dozen restaurants in Seattle and valued transparency above all else. Ellen was at the gala, mingling with a glass of wine, and I'd made sure she received a follow-up email that morning, hinting at a conflict of interest involving Claire and a certain real estate developer. I didn't expect her to act tonight, but the seed was planted. If Claire's bakery lost Ellen's backing, it would cripple her expansion and tarnish her reputation in the food scene. Phase 2 targeted Michael's condo project. Paul had uncovered a permitting issue with the Belltown development. Minor on its own, but enough to spook investors if framed the right way. I'd fed the details to Tom, the business journalist, along with a tip about Michael's questionable financial ties to a local business owner. Tom was here too, notebook in hand, chatting up investors. I told him to look for me tonight, promising an anonymous source with more dirt. My goal wasn't to destroy Michael's company outright. That was too ambitious. But to make his investors doubt him, to pull the rug out from under his big moment. Phase 3 was personal. I'd brought a USB drive with a slideshow, a curated collection of Paul's photos and screenshots. Claire and Michael at hotels, restaurants, that Portland trip. Nothing explicit, but the intimacy was undeniable. Her hand on his arm, his lips near her ear, the way they looked at each other. I'd hacked into the Gala's AV system earlier that day with Paul's help and loaded the slideshow onto the presentation laptop. It was set to play during Michael's keynote speech, a moment when every eye in the room would be on the screen. The humiliation would be public, undeniable, and devastating. I moved through the crowd, keeping my distance from Claire and Michael, blending in with the suits and small talk. I nodded at Tom, who gave me a subtle signal. He was ready to ask pointed questions when the time came. Ellen was deep in conversation with another investor, her expression serious, and I wondered if she'd already opened my email. The room felt like a chessboard, every move calculated, every piece in place. I just had to wait for the right moment to strike. Michael took the stage at 9, all charm and confidence, launching into a speech about the Belltown project's transformative potential. Claire stood near the front, clapping along with the crowd, her smile fixed. I slipped to the back of the room, near the AV booth, where a tech guy was half asleep at the controls. I'd paid him $500 to step away for 5 minutes during the keynote, no questions asked. As Michael droned on about sustainable urban living, I signaled the tech, who slipped out for a smoke. I leaned over the laptop, heart pounding, and cued the slideshow. It would start in 3 minutes, right as Michael hit the climax of his speech. But then a hitch. Claire's eyes met mine across the room. It was just a moment, a flicker of recognition, but her smile faltered. She whispered something to Michael, who glanced my way, his brow creasing. I turned away, pretending to check my phone, but my pulse was racing. Had she recognized me? Did she know I wasn't supposed to be here? I forced myself to stay calm. The plan was too far along to stop now. The slideshow started right on cue. The screen behind Michael flickered, and instead of his glossy renderings of luxury condos, there was Claire, laughing with him at a cafe. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The next slide, them entering a hotel, his hand on her back. Then a screenshot of a text. "Can't wait to see you tonight." The room went silent, then erupted in whispers. Michael froze, his mouth open mid-sentence. Claire's face drained of color, her eyes darting to the screen, then to me. I didn't look away this time. I wanted her to know it was me. The tech guy rushed back, fumbling to stop the slideshow, but the damage was done. Investors were murmuring, some pulling out their phones, others shooting looks at Michael and Claire. Tom was scribbling furiously, already crafting his headline. Ellen, Claire's investor, stood with her arms crossed, her face like stone. Michael tried to recover, stammering about a technical glitch, but the crowd wasn't listening. Claire slipped out a side door, and I followed, my heart a drumbeat in my chest. I caught up to her in the hallway, her heels clicking as she hurried toward the exit. Claire, I called, my voice low but firm. She stopped, her shoulders tensing, then turned to face me. David, she said, her voice shaking. What did you do? What did I do? I stepped closer, my anger finally breaking free. You lied to me for months. You threw away our marriage for him. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It got out of control. I was going to tell you. When? I snapped. After you'd spent our savings on hotel rooms? After you'd humiliated me in front of our daughter? She flinched, but I wasn't done. Your bakery's finished, I said. Ellen's pulling her funding. I made sure of it. And Michael? His investors are spooked. That condo project's dead in the water. You both thought you could play me, but I'm not the one who's losing everything tonight. Claire's face crumpled, but she didn't beg or plead. She just stood there, tears streaming, as the weight of it hit her. I turned and walked away, leaving her in the hallway, the sounds of the gala's chaos fading behind me. The aftermath was swift. Tom's article hit the next morning, a scathing piece about Brennan Properties' financial troubles and personal entanglements that raised questions about Michael's judgment. Investors started pulling out, and the permitting issue I'd leaked became a full-blown scandal. Claire's bakery lost Ellen's funding within a week, and the second location closed, the fallout spreading through Seattle's food scene like wildfire. Claire moved out, staying with her sister, and we started divorce proceedings. I kept things civil for Lily's sake, but I didn't forgive. Couldn't. I'd won in a way. Claire's dream was in ruins. Michael's reputation was trashed, and they both knew I'd outsmarted them. But as I sat in our half-empty house, Lily's drawings on the fridge, Claire's apron still hanging by the kitchen, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Revenge had been precise, devastating, but it hadn't filled the hole she'd left. I'd torn down their world, but mine was still broken, and I didn't know how to rebuild it.